Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Good Grief. My name is Dr. Christine Malone, and in this podcast, we talk about trauma, tragedy, and survival. In each episode, I will interview someone that has gone through grief in some way, and we will discuss the impact it has had on their life. By sharing these stories, we hope that others won't feel alone should they be going through similar situations. Enjoy. Okay, listeners, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. My guest today is going to talk to us about some of the things that she survived, the trauma she survived as a child, and what she's done for the rest of her life that really helps other people to heal and so on. So, guest, if you would please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, my name is Crystal. And yeah, I am a childhood trauma survivor and an alcohol addiction survivor. And now I am a speaker and the host of the She's Recovered podcast and the creator of She's Recovered.
Great. Great. Recovered podcast. I have to make sure we do get those links in for guests who want to listen to those or look those up. So tell us a little bit about, you don't have to go into too much detail. What kind of trauma was it that you had as a child that that you went through?
Yeah, so basically I suffered a lot of childhood trauma. I was actually removed from my home.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, so my mom was very psychologically abusive. She had a personality disorder, and then she was a bit physically abusive, and then my her spouse subjected me to sexual abuse um and basically took his side when I finally shared about it, which I actually learned in my graduate studies is actually very normal statistically speaking, which it sounds probably crazy, but it helped me to find comfort in a weird sad way, because it's like, oh man, that means that a lot of people probably feel how I have felt. And but at the same time, it's like it almost was like validation that I'm not like this weird um you know terrible person, all the things you
Oh yeah.
think,
Yeah.
after coming out of that kind of trauma, which aren't true, but they are true to someone who's still healing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so that was that abuse.
Yeah.
So
Now, were the parents, they had alcohol addiction as well?
no, that
Oh,
would be my other side,
okay. Okay.
where that was.
I
Yeah.
had the all the abuse and plus alcoholic parents on top of that. So yeah, that's I completely relate. And to your comment about, her siding with her husband, yes, of course you already know that that's not uncommon. I think the biggest harm from that is that the child then feels not worthy, right? It's kind of I'm not worth as much as this person is because you did that. But anyway, I know you know all that. You've already been through the education on all that and so on. So you've gone on to
Yeah.
do a lot of things to help with other women who survived trauma and so on. So tell us little bit about that. Kind of how did you get into it, and then sort of what sort of things do you do?
Yeah, of course. So basically, I just made my career about, helping other people and, really fellow survivors of childhood trauma. And then once I really came privy to what the research actually tells us about alcohol addiction, the root cause, and therefore the, options for recovery that should be more known about and available. I sort of really switched into that gear. And so I really primarily focus on the alcohol recovery, but it kind of my work now, the whole She's Recovered brand, whatever you want to call it, it really just mirrors my journey and my walk. So first, I believe that you have to address the alcohol addiction and then the trauma, and then you're able to address, all the trauma stuff. Whereas our society and our culture and our alcohol recovery system, the traditional alcohol recovery system, it really tries to address the trauma first, and because there's like this underlying assumption that you are drinking to self-medicate and cope. And for me, I don't agree that that is the case for the majority of people. It certainly wasn't the case for me. It is, for some people, but anyways, and so yeah, and so really addressing the alcohol addiction first, and then addressing, healing from any trauma that someone has survived. And that's really on the She's Recovered from alcohol addiction side. And then on the She's Recovered financially side, whereas sometimes that is work that we have to do after we are able to heal from alcohol addiction. On the financial side, I actually started a nonprofit to just help single moms heal from their financial troubles, so they can go on to be able to even invest in healing and in other areas. So that's sort of the work I do. I know there's kind of two sides. There's the
Yeah.
nonprofit side and then the for-profit side, but it's just helping women recover.
Yeah, I'd actually like to know. Because I've done interviews with people who've dealt with addiction, alcohol as well as drug addiction. Tell me, how is your resources program? I'm not sure what you would want to call that. Different from like the traditional AA or NA. What's different?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually really completely different, completely opposite. And I got a lot of hate for it, but then I also got a lot of love for it, which is, as you're a businesswoman yourself, that's the whole point of marketing. You're either super attracted to somebody or you're like super, not attracted to somebody, and those aren't your people. But so basically, so yeah, so I basically my approach to alcohol recovery is based off of my journey. And so basically I suffered for nearly a decade under our society culture and alcohol recovery systems, traditional understanding, and therefore approach to treatment, because I believe the understanding of the root cause directly impacts how we approach recovery. And so basically there's just this underlying belief that, somebody is choosing to overdrink, like they're choosing to drink beyond a drink or two or three. So that's one school of thought that I've sort of come across. The second school of thought is, okay, well, there are some people who have trouble with alcohol, and so they just need to abstain. Okay, understandable. It's not their fault, but they need to abstain. And then there's a third school of thought where, well, someone's turning to alcohol to cope with trauma and to self-medicate. And so that's sort of the third school of thought. And really just and so the recovery option that's made available, and really it's the only option that's made available, is that if you can't moderate your alcohol consumption, then you have to abstain entirely and for the rest of your life. And in many cases, they're nothing but sheer willpower. Um, and so for me personally, I tried that for 10 long years and I just couldn't, no matter what I did and how hard I tried. And it was devastating because, I was told, well, you have to, I was told one of those three schools of thought, right? You're choosing to do this. Like, why are you choosing to ruin your life, put everyone at risk around you, society at large? Like, or, you have to abstain, Crystal, if you can't, moderate. And then there's those who, kept telling me you have to heal your mental health and then your alcohol addiction will get better as a byproduct. Well, again, I tried all three for the best of my ability for 10 years, nearly 10 years. And I couldn't, no matter what I did and how hard I tried. Then I had my first daughter and I was able to abstain from alcohol my entire pregnancy. I don't know why, but thank God. And no obsessive thoughts and cravings either, which was sort of a miracle. And so, but then I went right back into it. And I was just so desperate that I began researching and I came across a TED Talk. And the speaker of this TED Talk was sharing that you just take one little pill and, your drinking woes will be cured. And I'm like, this is way too good to be true. Like, this is ridiculous. You just take one little pill like that, poof, and it's magic. Well, of course, it's not magic, it's science and brain chemistry, right? But but it seems like magic, from where I was sitting. And so I originally discounted it. But then I got so desperate, as if I wasn't already desperate enough, that I'm like, you know what? If I don't try it, it's not going to work for me. But if I try it, it might work. And so I sought out to try it. And I always say that you would think that this would be my happily ever after, but it wasn't, because I went to my family doctor to discuss, the various medication assisted treatments and this one in specific. And she basically was just trying to counsel me to keep a drink log. And after you've had a drink or two, just stop. You don't need any more. And she's like, I just don't think you need medication. And so I insisted on speaking to somebody higher up in the practice because I am that person who keeps going up the chain of command to get what I need, my family needs, my friend needs, my clients need, whoever. Um, and so the clinical director of the practice walks in and, oh, that's
I
interesting.
don't
The
know. I
balloons.
have to say right now again, balloons just come up. I'm like, I have no idea why, but
Somebody sent you a text message.
oh, is that what it is?
um, yeah. Is it your birthday?
No, no, it's not.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyways, and so the clinical director of the practice walks in. Yeah, and the clinical director of the practice basically tells me that she thinks I'm trying to go through the back door for treatment. And so then I went to another doctor's office, and basically she told me that I was trying to be my own doctor and treat myself, I guess, because I'm proposing this new way and saying, hey, can we look at the research? Like, this is a thing. And so she wouldn't prescribe it to me. And so then I went to another doctor's office and they basically just told me to get out of their office. And so I was really discouraged. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy just, how you could treat somebody like that. But that's my whole thing, right? Our culture and our society believes like we're addicts, we're alcoholics, we're selfish. Like, why can't we just stop drinking? Like, you're so weak, you're so bad. Like, that's, the whole belief system. And so I was so discouraged, and I just was really honestly at that time just thinking about how my daughter deserved better, like she just deserves better. I'm a lost cause, all the things. But I finally came across this doctor who was willing to explore MATs with me, medication assisted treatments. And he prescribed me the medication. In a few minutes, I got my medication. And I will say that I was a single mom at the time, working for the state and not really making a great salary at all. And so I was really not able to even afford our basic necessities. And this doctor didn't take medical insurance through his practice. He was an ER doctor, but he had his own practice. And so I had to take for my rent money to pay this doctor out of pocket. But I did. And again, I got my medication easy. And so then I was kind of on my own. And but once I started, getting on alternative approaches to alcohol recovery, I got better in just 3 short months, which I could not do in nearly a decade. And I've been recovered ever since. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't things I had to figure out. I had to figure out a lot, and I had to figure it out basically all on my own. But the point is that I was able to figure it out. And then the last part to this segment of the story, sorry, I've been talking a long time, but is that then I went on to earn my 2 graduate degrees, one in research and analysis and the other one in child advocacy and policy.
Hmm.
And so I know how to really read well the primary research, conduct my own research, and analyze it, and then really make policy prescription and kind of how do we improve systems which directly impact people's everyday lives. And I realized, oh my God, there was nothing wrong with me. There's a reason why I couldn't get better for 10 long years, because there was nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with the system. And now when I say that, I know that a lot of people can get very upset at me. Um, but it's not my opinion. I mean, if you look at the data, only 10 out of 100 people will even seek help for alcohol addiction in their lifetime. That means that 90% of people will live their entire lives and they will never seek help. That's a really large number, because behind that are children suffering, families, communities, society at large. I mean, how many people lose their life to a drunk driving accident? And then those 10 out of 100 people who do seek help, they will take on average 10 years before they even seek help.
Hmm.
And only 1 out of 10 people actually get formal help. And then out of those 1 out of 10 who get formal help, not many of them are truly able to recover and long term. And for those who are, not many really have a quality of life. They constantly suffer from strong and obsessive thoughts and cravings for alcohol all day, every day, with no line of defense other than to white knuckle it and to have fear of what will happen if they pick up another drink. And if they do pick up another drink without any alternative path to alcohol recovery implemented into their recovery, they should be fearful, because bad things will happen. But on the other hand, if you turn to alternative approaches to alcohol recovery, like the method that I did when I first started out, all the clinical trials demonstrate a 78% success rate, 11% non-medication compliant. But I would argue that if we address the why of that, we have potential perhaps for an 89% effectiveness rate. And then there are multiple other different medications that treat alcohol use disorder. And of course, medication assisted treatment isn't the only tool that we use, but it is a major tool. But we have a opportunity to help like a majority of people and to really bring a lot of suffering to end. But in order to do that, we have to be willing to think about even what I'm, presenting here today. And that's a part that I find a lot of people aren't willing to do in my experience. But
Well,
sorry, that was a long answer to your
no,
question.
no, it actually was very, very interesting. Tell me so I've never heard of a medication that helps to curb alcohol cravings. So I'm intrigued, especially coming from a family of alcoholics. So was this medication you mentioned the doctors didn't want to prescribe it? Was it like it was controversial? Was it kind of like the Ozempic thing today where people are using this diabetic medication for weight loss and then, some doctors are into that, some aren't? Was it kind of like early on in that phase or something where it just wasn't accept it? Because I can't imagine why these doctors would be turning you down for something if it was, known to work.
Yeah, well, in my research that I primarily have conducted and that I hope to go on to conduct more, so what I find is that people, just again, society, culture, and our recovery system at large have just such a hard, they have such a hard time even considering that the root cause of alcohol use disorder, excuse me, um, is not behavioral and it's not a matter of will, and that there's actually something going on inside somebody's brain. Somebody's brain, who we would call an alcoholic, which I'm one of them, I guess. Our brains just merely react differently when alcohol is introduced to our system. And if we understand what, goes on inside the brain, then we would understand that what we're doing actually is kind of gaslighty, right? It's very psychologically abusive. Like we're literally like when we tell somebody who has cancer, somebody who's suffering from cancer, when we tell them just will those cells to shrink and go away. I don't know all the terminology for that, but no, we wouldn't do that because that's ridiculous and that's mean. But yet we do that to somebody who suffers from alcohol use disorder. And it's just people, pastors, nurses, doctors, uh, just society and culture. Like I still have people in my life who have seen me walk this entire journey and they refuse to accept that the root cause of my alcohol use disorder had nothing to do with my trauma. It had everything. It's just crazy to me because science has proved this. I mean, would we tell like somebody, oh no, that I see that x-ray, I see the bone broken, but that bone is not broken. Like, no, we wouldn't because we believe that x-rays are telling us the truth. Well, why can't we believe that brain scans are telling us the truth? And so why? Well, I think that medical professionals are a part of our culture and society. Our alcohol recovery system, I guess you could say, is downstream of culture and society, and so this is what people carry with them. And but hence my life's work, hence why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do because, I'm also a Christian and that has like nothing to do necessarily with, my work. Other than it is the basis for everything probably I do, my faith. But the Bible says that you will know the truth and the truth will set you free, and the Passion Translation says that if you accept the truth then you can experience full freedom into your lives. And so that means that if we don't know the truth, then we're not going to be set free. We're going to be in bondage. We can't be set free. And so my goal is to uncover truth because it sets people free in my experience. So
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. So, you're kind of reminding me of I mean, I'm older than you are, and I remember when behavioral health issues were really kind of coming to the forefront, where people were really, admitting to them or seeking help for them and so on. Medicating for those was considered to be I almost call it like the easy way out, right? Like rather than deal with your
yeah.
issues and take a medicine and make it better. And a lot of conditions today, I know people still think the same way. Rather than eat better to help with my diabetes, I'll just take a medication or whatever, what it might be. But then the studies have shown that the brain chemicals are very different in a person who's struggling with mental health issues, depression, so on and so forth. There's no question if you can just look at the science, not someone's opinion, but the science behind it. So it kind of sounds like that's where this is with this, medically assisted treatment for alcohol abuse disorder. So I'm just curious about that because it's kind of like, well, when do you expect that it would become more mainstream or more, I mean, I have friends who've told me they've gone to the doc and said, I think I need an antidepressant. I'm really having a lot of trouble with depression right now. And the provider refusing to prescribe it to them and saying, no, you just need to get into
Mm.
therapy, or you need to go to exercise, or you need to this, you need to that, go get some more sun. Let's get you some more vitamin D. And I've always kind of wondered, well, again, I get it. We don't want to take medications for every little single thing in our lives. I understand that. However, if it's something that does actually improve your life, how is that bad? I mean, if there's a side effect that's going to make me live less, I don't know, whatever, I can see there being a discussion about it and saying, if you take
Yeah.
this medication, for instance, I had breast cancer 3 years ago and
Mm.
have not had return of it, thankfully, but I take a medication every day
Thanks.
that suppresses my hormones so that it doesn't come back. Well, of course, the side effect of that is deterioration of bones. So you have to take extra calcium. So there's always that
Mm.
that balance
Yeah.
of that, and I get it, so long as I'm informed and I'm making my choice to say, well, I'd much rather take this
Right.
medication and then take the calcium
Right.
than this cancer, right? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, but I can see where people might have trouble with that. What I have trouble with is physicians making that choice for you rather than in concert with you,
Oh
right?
yeah, me
That's
too.
what I have trouble with when I hear your stories. Like having worked in healthcare a long time, I'm like, a doc who doesn't help me make my care choices again in concert with me and what I believe and what I
Mm.
want. Educate me. Obviously, I don't know what I don't know, as you've mentioned, but on the other hand,
Yep.
don't just poo-poo something because you don't personally believe it, right? That's
Right.
thought on that. So, do you think it's like that whole the different type of treatment is something that is becoming catch on a little more as we go forward? Obviously, with the success rates you're talking about, I can't imagine how people could ignore that for any length of time.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean it's the question of, my life and really just my really where I want to, go on to earn my own, PhD work and or, excuse me, earn my own PhD and really, study it. Why? Why? I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand there, but I want to understand. Yeah, I don't really know. And it's funny because I am kind of the same. Like anybody who knows me knows that I am Western medicine. I'm so grateful for it, but only when necessary. And I'm very much, food is your medicine, the whole Dr. Axe. I'm not sure if you've heard of Dr. AXE. Um, just food is your medicine. And, I just know that sometimes, there is stuff going on in the brain chemistry that it, you need Western medicine at times,
Yeah.
I will say this. For example, one of the medications that I've taken, naltrexone, it's only been out since, what is it, 91 or 92? I can't remember the exact year. But so it's roughly a little over 30 years. And it takes about roughly, I've heard, I've read in the research about, 30 years for a medication to become more mainstream. And so maybe perhaps time but also I think, people doing the work that I'm doing, which I don't know really many people who are doing the work I'm doing, but, I think it takes people like me to stand up and say, hey, I mean, women couldn't vote and have checking accounts until people, started, standing up and saying something. I mean, something that hits home close for my family is like racism. Like people used to be really racist and it used to be in our laws, right? And it's
Yep.
crazy because obviously you can see I'm white. Probably the listeners can't see that, but my husband is black and my children are biracial. And so that one hits really close home for us, but that was even a reality at one time.
Mhm.
Um, and still there's things that, women and minority people have to deal with. Um, but anyways, just it takes a while, I guess, for things that aren't right to be made right in society. So it's just hence my work. But I really think it's just that subconscious programming that we just are told everywhere that if somebody's an alcoholic, they're bad and they made that choice and they just don't care about other people. And I'm sure there are some people who, are, I guess we could quantify as alcoholics. I hate calling somebody an alcoholic because it's not somebody's identity. Um, but who do choose, so for some people it is a matter of willpower, but the point is that they can stop. And I'm talking about the people who cannot stop no matter what they do and how hard they try, and that they get constant and obsessive thoughts and cravings for alcohol all day, every day when they do abstain, that they eventually will give into because they are strong and they are obsessive and they're just too strong. And that's the person that I'm talking about, in my work, which I believe is the majority of people. So.
Yeah. You already answered a question I was going to ask you, which is, since you have master's degrees, I'm thinking, well, surely you need to go and do some more research and do your PhD, but you've already mentioned that. So that'd be an excellent
I want
topic
to.
for research for sure. So yeah, lot of work. But if you think about the number of people that sort of research would help, is really, kind of makes you kind of go, wow, the way you could, reach out and help other people even more than you're doing right now. So, well, your
Mhm.
story has been fascinating. Thank you for sharing it. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we end today?
No, no, thank you. Thank you so much for, inviting me on and allowing me to, share. And I'm super passionate about it. And just thank you for being so kind and open. It's always refreshing because, oh my gosh, boy, do I get it. I remember one time one person, this has only happened once, but they actually kicked me off their podcast because they were just so upset about my message. And then they
Oh
sent me
my.
this whole long email, like citing all this data that I cite in my work. And I
Yeah.
just didn't even respond because it's just like,
Yeah.
why? I'm not going to change your mind. I am, so for me, I am about, and we talked a little bit, I guess I do have something to share before we go. Um, I'm about informed consent, and the whole basis, values of my work underlying is having the heart of a teacher to teach everybody everything that is available to them, and all the side effects and all the the benefits and the risks, and and then when somebody has all that information, just having the heart of an advocate. And what is it that you want? Do you want sobriety? Do you want moderation? Do you want moderation onto sobriety? Because, 40% of people actually go that way. I'm actually that way now. I have no desire for alcohol at this time. Or do you want sobriety and then, moderation once in a blue, okay, let's give you everything. Here's all the tools that you need. Here's all the tools that are possible. Here's the provider that will support you in whatever path you want to choose. And I'm here to support you in your choice.
Mhm.
And because I mean, the research also tells us, right, that that's actually like a major component of all this. Like somebody has to like want the path before them. If you force them down that path, they are not going to change. I mean, some might, but it's very like small chance that they will. But you increase your chances like so much by just supporting someone in their chosen path. And so heart of a teacher, heart of an advocate. And that's what I'm trying to do, just trying to change our system. And also, of course, I work with people one-on-one and in group settings.
Well,
But
good
yeah.
on you. I mean, like I said, you're making me think of all the different things in especially healthcare that people didn't believe in or think were worthwhile, that have turned around, where it's like, no, that actually does work for this, and this actually is that, and holistic medicine, so on. I mean, whatever the thing may be, rather than poo-poo it and say, no, there's only one way, but to say there might be other ways that work for people, and you don't belittle that, and don't refuse them, whatever that may be. I can see if a doc was like somehow morally opposed to something to say no, but I mean, to me, it's kind of like if it's better for the patient's health and it's not dangerous to them or to others, I just can't grasp why people wouldn't say, well, let's try that. If that doesn't work, let's try something else, and move from there, and just give the person the autonomy. I mean, when you're talking about informed consent, that's all about, I don't have to be a medical expert. You just give me all the information I need to know so I can make the choice that I think works best for me. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
a lot it gets missed in medicine, unfortunately, in too many cases. But yes. Well, Crystal, thank you again for being my guest on this show. I incredibly yeah, interested in what you've had to say. We will, like I said, we'll put some links in the liner notes for the podcast so guests can find you and find your information.
Of course. Sounds good. Thank you again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Good Grief. To hear more about my personal story, please pick up a copy of my book, The Day I Became the Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival, available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. via Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other online book retailers.